Have you ever been jerked awake at 2 a.m. by a sharp, searing pain in your calf? The kind that makes you gasp and grab for the bedsheet, praying it will pass? If you're over 60, you're not alone. Every night, millions of older adults silently battle leg cramps, sudden, stabbing muscle contractions that feel like their body has turned against them. But here's what no one tells you. These cramps are not just a nuisance. They're a warning, a whisper from your body saying something's missing. And that something, it may be as simple as what's on your plate. In today's video on Daily Elder Advice, we're diving deep into the top 3 cramp-fighting superfoods that could change your nights, your muscles, and quite possibly, your life. So stay with me. This isn't just about food. It's about freedom, the freedom to sleep soundly, walk confidently, and age with strength. Why leg cramps strike after 60? If you're over 60 and have started noticing those nighttime cramps, muscle tightness when walking, or sudden spasms when you stretch, you might have been told, it's just old age. Let me tell you something. That phrase, just old age, has robbed more people of good health than almost anything else. Leg cramps in seniors are not inevitable. They're a symptom, a sign that something deeper is off in your body's internal balance. Often, it comes down to 3 root causes. 1. Electrolyte imbalance. As we age, our ability to retain minerals like potassium, magnesium, and calcium declines. These minerals are critical for healthy muscle contraction and nerve signaling. When they drop, your muscles don't get the message to relax. The result, cramp. 2. Poor circulation. Blood flow weakens with age due to inactivity, arterial stiffness, or underlying conditions like diabetes. Reduced circulation means your muscles aren't receiving the oxygen and nutrients they need to recover or function smoothly. 3. Muscle loss. By age 60, most people begin losing 3 to 8% of their muscle mass per decade. Less muscle means more strain on what remains, increasing the likelihood of fatigue-induced cramps, especially at night. In today's video, we're going to uncover the 3 most powerful foods that can help prevent leg cramps in older adults naturally, safely, and without expensive supplements. These aren't exotic superfoods from across the world. They're simple, accessible, often forgotten, and yet, they hold the power to restore sleep, improve mobility, and give you back control of your body. Whether you're someone who wakes up in pain, or someone who's just beginning to notice tension in your legs, this video is for you. Stick around, because what you learn today may just change the way you sleep tonight. The first, eggs, the unsung hero of muscle health. Let's begin with a truth most people don't realize until it's too late. One of the most powerful remedies for leg cramps is sitting right in your refrigerator. Eggs, humble, affordable, and packed with healing potential. For seniors, eggs are more than a breakfast staple. They're a restorative powerhouse for aging muscles, fragile nerves, and fading strength. As we age, a silent enemy creeps in: sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle mass and function. This condition not only weakens our bodies but also sets the stage for frequent cramps, poor balance, and difficulty performing even simple tasks like walking or standing up from a chair. But here's where eggs come in. Complete protein source. Each egg contains all 9 essential amino acids, the building blocks of muscle. A single large egg gives you about 6 grams of high-quality protein, which directly helps in rebuilding muscle fibers, enhancing repair, and reducing fatigue. Vitamin D for muscle function. Vitamin D is crucial for calcium absorption, and calcium is necessary for muscle contractions. Older adults, especially those who spend little time in sunlight, often suffer from low vitamin D, which can lead to weakened muscles and chronic cramps. Vitamin B12 and choline for nerve health. Without proper nerve signals, even the strongest muscle can spasm or fail to respond. B12 supports the protective myelin sheath around nerves, improving the communication between your brain and muscles. Choline works synergistically to keep your neuromuscular system humming. What makes eggs even more special for seniors is that they are easy to digest, incredibly versatile, a safer alternative to red meat for those with digestive or cardiovascular concerns. Yet, despite these benefits, many seniors avoid eggs due to outdated fears about cholesterol. But modern research is clear. 6 to 7 eggs per week is considered safe for most healthy adults and may even improve HDL, good cholesterol levels. Let me tell you about James, a 76-year-old retired mechanic from Pennsylvania. For years, James struggled with sudden nighttime leg cramps that would jolt him awake, leaving him groaning in pain and limping the next morning. He tried magnesium supplements, drank more water, even used heating pads. Nothing seemed to work long-term. One morning, his granddaughter Sarah visited. She noticed his breakfast: toast, jam, and coffee. No protein, no nutrients to support his muscles. Sarah, a young nutrition student, said gently, "Grandpa, let's try something new. Let's add 2 boiled eggs to your breakfast every day for a month. Just trust me." James shrugged. "Eggs, at my age, won't that raise my cholesterol?" But he agreed to try. By the 3rd week, James noticed something strange, or rather, the absence of something. No cramps, no pain at 3 a.m., no waking up in agony. Just deep, uninterrupted sleep. "I thought it was a fluke," he later told his doctor. But it kept happening, or rather, it didn't happen. That's when his doctor explained. The protein in the eggs had helped rebuild his tired muscles. The vitamin D and B12 had restored nerve function and reduced the misfiring signals. The healthy fats improved his nutrient absorption. From that day on, James never skipped his morning eggs. So, how should older adults incorporate eggs into their diets? Frequency: aim for 6 to 7 eggs per week. Timing: breakfast is ideal, but including eggs in an early dinner may support overnight muscle repair. Pairing: combine with leafy greens, whole grains for sustained energy, avocados or yogurt. Customization: for high cholesterol, eat more egg whites, limit yolks. For kidney concerns, consult your doctor about protein limits. For diabetics, pair eggs with fiber-rich foods to manage blood sugar. One overlooked strategy is to combine eggs with fortified foods like vitamin D milk or salmon to maximize the synergistic effect on muscle and bone strength. Eggs are not just a breakfast food. They're a cramp-fighting, muscle-strengthening, nerve-healing treasure trove, especially for those in their golden years. If you've been waking up with pain, maybe it's not just aging. Maybe your muscles are crying out for something as simple as an egg. Start with 1 egg tomorrow morning and see what changes. If you found part 1 helpful, comment 1 or share your thoughts. If you feel it didn't meet your expectations, comment 0 and let us know what we should improve or clarify. And before we move on to the next chapter, let me gently remind you, if you found even one useful insight so far, there's so much more still to come. If you're enjoying this journey, please take a second to click the subscribe button. It means the world to us, and it helps more people like you discover life-changing, age-wise advice. And I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing you've learned so far that surprised you? Leave a comment below with the number of the chapter that resonated most. Let's keep learning from one another. The second, bananas, nature's electrolyte gift. Imagine this: you're lying in bed, just about to drift into sleep when suddenly, bam, your calf seizes in a painful, twisting cramp. It feels like your muscle is turning into stone, and all you can do is wince and wait. Sound familiar? For millions of older adults, this scenario plays out night after night. The cause? Often, it's not your age. It's not your lack of exercise. It's something much smaller and far more fixable. Low potassium. Potassium is a vital mineral that keeps your muscles and nerves working in harmony. It ensures smooth muscle contractions, proper nerve signaling, balanced fluid levels in and out of cells. When potassium drops too low, a condition called hypokalemia, muscles can become hyperreactive, twitchy, and cramp-prone. It's like trying to run a car with faulty wiring. Now here's the good news. Bananas are one of the most natural, effective, and senior-friendly ways to correct this imbalance. A single medium banana offers 420 milligrams of potassium, magnesium, another key electrolyte, vitamin B6, which helps the nervous system fire correctly, hydrating natural sugars that gently restore cellular fluid balance. And the best part? Bananas require no cooking, no prep, no fuss. But potassium isn't just about cramps. It helps prevent muscle stiffness, boost circulation, and protect against irregular heartbeats, all of which are increasingly important after 60. Let's go deeper. Real-life story. Evelyn's bedtime banana. Evelyn is 81. She's a retired piano teacher who lives alone in a quiet coastal town. For years, she kept a glass of water beside her bed, not because she was thirsty, but because her nighttime cramps were unbearable. She had tried everything: stretching before bed, warm baths, magnesium pills. Nothing lasted. One evening, her neighbor, a retired nurse named Doreen, casually asked, "Evelyn, have you tried a banana before bed?" Evelyn chuckled. "A banana? I'm not a monkey, dear." But that night, curiosity won. She ate a small ripe banana at 9 p.m., along with a warm glass of water. That night, no cramps. She thought it was coincidence, but she tried again and again. Over the following weeks, Evelyn made her banana routine sacred. She even added a pinch of sea salt and a few pumpkin seeds for extra minerals. Months later, her doctor noted improvements not just in her sleep but in her blood pressure and mood. "I call it my golden fruit," she told us with a smile. "I used to fear going to sleep. Now, I look forward to it." So how can seniors make bananas work for them without overdoing sugar or spiking blood glucose? Ideal intake: 1 banana per day is enough for most. For those with chronic cramps, 2 bananas spread out across the day can offer more sustained support. Best times to eat bananas: evening snack, 1 to 2 hours before bed, helps muscles recover and prevents nighttime cramps. Post-walk or post-exercise, replaces lost electrolytes quickly. With breakfast, pair with oats or yogurt for a balanced, energizing start. Diabetic considerations: bananas are naturally sweet, so seniors with diabetes should. Pair with fiber-rich foods like chia seeds or walnuts. Eat half a banana at a time, twice a day if needed. Avoid underripe, green bananas, which are harder to digest. Bonus tip: try blending a banana into a smoothie with spinach, almond butter, and water for a cramp-fighting, energy-boosting drink. Bananas are not just kid food or smoothie filler. They're a medicinal fruit for muscle wellness and one of the simplest, safest, and most delicious ways to restore balance in the body. If you found part 2 helpful, comment 2 or share your thoughts. If you feel it didn't meet your expectations, comment 0 and let us know what we should improve or clarify. The third, nuts and seeds, tiny giants of relief. Let's take a moment to shift our focus not to the fridge, but to the pantry. Inside that small jar or resealable bag lies one of nature's most powerful tools for preventing muscle cramps: nuts and seeds. They may be tiny in size, but they pack an enormous punch when it comes to muscle repair, nerve function, and inflammation reduction. For seniors, whose bodies may be slower to bounce back and more prone to tension, these little powerhouses provide magnesium, critical for calming muscle excitability. Potassium helps maintain electrolyte balance and nerve signaling. Protein repairs micro tears in muscle tissue. Healthy fats, especially omega-3s and monounsaturated fats that reduce inflammation and improve circulation. 1 ounce of pumpkin seeds contains more magnesium than a multivitamin. A handful of pistachios delivers more potassium than half a banana. And unlike some processed supplements, nuts and seeds deliver these nutrients in a natural, absorbable form. Here's why this matters. Cramps, especially in the legs, are often a sign that your muscles are fatigued, inflamed, or undernourished. By replenishing what's lost through stress, sweat, and age, nuts and seeds act like microscopic mechanics. fine-tuning your body's electrical and muscular systems. Real-life story. George and his pocket full of pistachios. George, 72, is a retired gardener from Arizona. Every morning, he tended his small backyard of tomatoes, basil, and sunflowers. But over the past year, he noticed a new problem. His legs would cramp painfully after only 20 minutes of weeding. He blamed dehydration, then lack of sleep, then old age. But during a routine visit, his doctor looked at his blood work and found mild magnesium and potassium deficiency. He suggested something simple. Add a handful of mixed nuts every day. Pumpkin seeds, pistachios, almonds. Give it 2 weeks. George laughed. I thought you'd prescribe a pill. But he took the advice. Every morning before gardening, he started carrying a small zip bag of unsalted nuts and seeds in his pocket. Pumpkin seeds, almonds, walnuts, and pistachios. The change, noticeable within 10 days. The cramps eased, his recovery after gardening improved. Even his mental clarity and mood got better. It was like oiling the rusty parts. He told us, I didn't realize my muscles were starving not from work, but from missing nutrients. Practical guidance for seniors. Not all nuts and seeds are created equal, but most offer significant muscle-supporting benefits. Top nuts and seeds for cramp prevention. Pumpkin seeds, highest in magnesium. Almonds, good source of both magnesium and potassium. Pistachios, among the highest in potassium. Cashews, rich in magnesium and healthy fats. Walnuts, loaded with omega-3s for anti-inflammatory benefits. Flax seeds contain plant-based omega-3s and fiber. When to eat them? With meals, helps with absorption and prevents sugar spikes. After light exercise or walks, replenishes electrolytes lost through sweat. Before bed, magnesium can promote relaxation and improve sleep quality. For many seniors, leg cramps aren't just about muscle fatigue. They're often tied to chronic low-grade inflammation and poor blood flow. This is where omega-3 fatty acids, found in walnuts and flax seeds, make a major difference. Improve circulation by reducing arterial stiffness. Reduce inflammation in muscle tissue, promoting faster recovery. Lower oxidative stress, one of the causes of muscle pain in older adults. Monounsaturated fats in almonds and cashews also. Help maintain healthy blood pressure. Improve delivery of oxygen to muscle cells. Support the integrity of blood vessels, reducing nighttime leg cramps. Nuts and seeds are not just snacks. They're micronutritional machines, finely tuned to support your aging muscles, stabilize your electrolytes, and keep cramps at bay. If you've ever rubbed your calf in the dark of night, desperate for the pain to pass, maybe your body is asking not for medicine, but for magnesium, hidden in a single pumpkin seed. So next time you feel a twinge, don't reach for a pill. Reach for a handful of nature's finest. Your legs and your sleep will thank you. If you found part 3 helpful, comment, free, or share your thoughts. If you feel it didn't meet your expectations, comment 0 and let us know what we should improve or clarify. As we reach the end of today's journey, let's pause and remember the quiet power in the everyday. Think of Margaret, who no longer wakes up crying in the dark. Think of James, who rediscovered strength with a single egg. Of Evelyn, whose peaceful sleep returned with a banana. And George, who conquered pain with a simple handful of pistachios. These aren't miracles. They're reminders that healing doesn't always come in a bottle, sometimes. It begins in the kitchen. Growing older is not a sentence to suffer through cramps, stiffness, and restless nights. It's a chance to listen more closely to your body's needs and respond with small, consistent acts of care. Eggs rebuild what time tries to take. Bananas recharge what exhaustion drains. Nuts and seeds calm the inflammation that wears us down from the inside. If there's one truth we hope you carry from this video, it's this: aging may be inevitable, but suffering is not. You deserve to sleep deeply, rise with ease, and move through each day without fear of your own body. So start with one small step today. Add an egg, peel a banana, Grab a handful of almonds and pay attention to how your body responds. Then, pass it on. Share this wisdom with a friend, a spouse, a grandchild. Because the legacy you leave isn't just in stories, it's in the habits you model and the health you protect. If this video touched your heart or gave you something to think about, we'd love to hear from you. Please share your thoughts in the comments, even just a word or a memory. A simple "thank you" or "I've tried this" could help someone else who's reading. And if you believe that aging can still be full of wisdom, warmth, and new beginnings, tap the like button to let us know this kind of content matters. Subscribe to Daily Elder Advice for more gentle, research-based stories and tips made just for you. Because life after 60 isn't the end, it's a different kind of beginning, and we're honored to walk it with you.